The first sensation to register was the steady, rhythmic beeping of a heart monitor echoing in the quiet room. Following closely behind was a deep, unbearable ache radiating through every single fiber of my body. Bright morning sunlight streamed unmercifully through the hospital window, making it nearly impossible for me to pry my eyelids open. I desperately tried to piece together what had transpired, but my memories felt completely scattered, like fragile shards of broken glass lying on a cold floor. Then, blurred shapes sharpened into focus, and I noticed a young woman sitting quietly right beside my bed. Tears streamed down her cheeks, yet the moment our eyes met, she forced a brave, trembling smile onto her face. It was Maren, my girlfriend's younger sister. Her voice barely above a whisper. She told me how terrified she had been that she would never see me wake up again. Right then and there, a chilling realization washed over me. Something had gone horribly wrong. Little did I know, simply waking up was going to be the absolute easiest part of this entire ordeal. Before we press on, if you genuinely believe that kindness deserves a second chance and that even shattered lives can be lovingly pieced back together, please give this video a thumbs up, drop a comment below, share it with someone who might desperately need a dose of hope, and subscribe to Kindness Echoes. Your unwavering support ensures these heartfelt narratives find their way to more open hearts. My name is Rowan, and up until that fateful morning, I genuinely believed my life was nothing short of completely ordinary. I spent my days working as a landscape architect, dedicating my hours to helping families transform their outdoor spaces into breathtaking sanctuaries. I completely adored the tranquil, grounding rhythm of planting new trees, carefully mapping out garden beds, and watching barren yards eventually burst into lush havens where children would one day play and laugh freely. My girlfriend, Celeste, used to playfully tease me for dragging home tiny potted plants every single weekend, often joking that our apartment looked far more like an overgrown botanical greenhouse than an actual home. She wasn't entirely wrong, of course. To me, every tiny leaf served as a gentle reminder that true growth demands endless patience and care. The day that shattered our reality had started out bathed in glorious sunshine. Celeste and I had mapped out a lovely picnic by the river, planned for right after I finished up a meeting with a client. We were both buzzing with excitement because we had finally made the joint decision to start house hunting for our very first home together. It genuinely felt like the thrilling opening lines of an entirely fresh chapter in our lives. I can still vividly recall driving down familiar, sunlit streets, absent-mindedly humming along to whatever tune was playing on the radio while daydreaming about fresh paint colors and backyard flower beds. Then, out of nowhere, a speeding truck brazenly blew through a red light. I caught sight of it mere fractions of a second before the brutal impact. After that, everything dissolved into total, suffocating darkness. When I finally flickered back to consciousness in the hospital room, fragments of those memories slowly trickled back, each individual piece bringing with it a fresh, crushing wave of agony. Maren gently explained that I had been completely unconscious for 3 agonizing days. The medical staff had honestly been unsure if or when I would ever wake up, and there were several harrowing moments when they feared I might have suffered permanent brain damage. Throughout it all, Maren had barely left my side. She had endured sleepless nights curled up in stiff, uncomfortable chairs and survived on whatever she could grab from vending machines simply because she refused to let me wake up alone in that sterile room. With a throat so dry and raw it felt like sandpaper, I kept repeating the exact same question in a weak, trembling voice. Where was Celeste? Every single time the words left my lips, Maren's brave smile faltered just a little bit more. She reached out to give my hand a reassuring squeeze before gently explaining that Celeste had miraculously survived the devastating crash with only minor physical injuries. A massive wave of pure relief rushed through me so fast and hard that hot tears sprang to my eyes. But then, Maren hesitated, her expression tightening. She went on to explain that the trauma of the accident had shaken Celeste so profoundly that she simply couldn't bring herself to walk through those hospital doors just yet. Every single time she managed to reach the hospital entrance, a suffocating wave of panic completely paralyzed her. She tortured herself with the belief that it was all her fault for asking me to meet her that afternoon, even though logic dictated she was entirely blameless. I desperately wanted to tell Celeste that I harbored no anger toward her whatsoever. I longed to hold her hand tightly and remind her that genuine love isn't calculated by counting your perfect, sunny days, but rather by the sheer willpower it takes to survive impossible storms together. Yet, at that moment, I couldn't even manage to prop myself up into a sitting position without needing outside assistance. The grueling week that followed tested every last reserve of physical and mental strength I possessed. My shattered leg demanded invasive surgery. The broken ribs in my chest made taking a simple breath feel as though I were inhaling fire. Even the sheer humiliation of learning how to stand upright using a metal walker felt utterly defeating. There were mornings when the overwhelming frustration brought hot, angry tears to my eyes. I had always prided myself on being fiercely independent, yet here I was, struggling endlessly just to button up a shirt on my own. Through every single setback and dark moment, Maren stood resolutely by my side. She never once let the atmosphere curdle into heavy, stifling pity. Instead, she treated every minuscule milestone as if it were a massive championship victory. The very first time I managed to stand on my own 2 feet without collapsing, she cheered louder than anyone else in the room. When I laboriously pushed through 5 painful, agonizing steps down the rehabilitation hallway, she acted as though I had just crossed the finish line of a grueling marathon. One quiet afternoon, she confessed something to me that caught me completely off guard. Growing up, she had always lived in the shadow of her remarkably confident older sister, often feeling utterly invisible and convinced that she possessed nothing of value to offer the world. But sitting faithfully beside my hospital bed had completely shifted her perspective, showing her that simply showing up and being present for someone can radically alter the course of their entire day. Her brand of kindness wasn't loud, dramatic, or cinematic. It existed entirely within the quiet, sacred margins of everyday life, refilling my water pitcher, adjusting the heavy hospital blankets, and softly whispering that tomorrow was bound to be a brighter day. Her words echoed in my mind long after she packed up and left for the evening. Then, nearly 2 weeks after the horrific collision, something truly miraculous unfolded right before my eyes. As my physical therapists were carefully guiding me through crutch walking practice near the hospital's sunny indoor garden, I caught sight of a familiar figure standing hesitantly beneath a blooming tree. It was Celeste. She looked utterly exhausted, her eyes rimmed in red from countless sleepless nights plagued by guilt and fear. For several long, suspended seconds, neither of us dared to move an inch. Then, she began to walk slowly toward me, tears pouring silently down her cheeks. She broke down, confessing that she had been utterly consumed by a suffocating sense of guilt, entirely convinced that she had permanently sabotaged both of our futures. She genuinely believed that I deserved a partner whose life wasn't hopelessly entangled with such sudden tragedy. Despite the sharp, stabbing pain shooting viciously through my shoulder, I reached out with all my might to grab her hand. I reminded her firmly that random accidents do not possess the power to erase genuine love. They cannot rewrite heartfelt promises or shatter shared dreams unless we willingly surrender and let fear claim the victory. We had somehow survived the worst. That singular truth alone was worth fighting tooth and nail for. She let out a ragged breath and collapsed against my shoulder, crying softly as she murmured endless apologies over and over again. I didn't need her apologies. What I desperately needed was for her to look me in the eye and believe that we were still entirely capable of building the vibrant life we had always dreamed of together. The road to recovery stretched out over many long months. Some days brought encouraging progress, while other days felt like we were trapped in a labyrinth of frustrating setbacks. Rainy mornings particularly brought a deep, aching chill to my bones, serving as a harsh, throbbing reminder of the metal bending on impact. Still, with each passing week, I grew fractionally stronger. My very first unassisted walk without crutches felt less like physical therapy and more like reclaiming a vital piece of my stolen soul. Walking back through the doors of my workplace on my first day back felt like discovering a buried treasure of hope. Yet, the most profound transformation wasn't physical at all. Celeste proactively began attending specialized counseling to help her process and heal from the residual trauma of the crash. Meanwhile, inspired by her experiences in the hospital, Maren officially enrolled in nursing school after discovering a fierce, natural passion for comforting and healing vulnerable patients. Watching both of these incredible sisters heal and grow in such vastly different ways served as a powerful reminder that profound pain doesn't always break people beyond repair. Sometimes, it acts as a crucible, revealing hidden reserves of strength they never even knew they possessed. A full year later, we finally stumbled upon the exact house we had once dreamed of owning. It was far from a polished masterpiece. The walls desperately needed a fresh coat of paint, the roof leaked audibly during heavy downpours, and the overgrown backyard looked thoroughly neglected by time. Most passers-by would have looked at the property and seen a bottomless pit of exhausting renovations and repairs. I looked at it and saw pure, unadulterated potential. Together, we planted our very first sapling right in the center of our new yard. As I carefully patted down the rich, dark soil around its fragile roots, I couldn't help but notice how much the little tree resembled the two of us. Slightly bent by fierce storms, carrying the permanent scars of past hardships, yet stubbornly and hopefully reaching upward toward the golden sunlight. Life had certainly not reverted to what it was before the accident. Instead, it had gracefully evolved into something much deeper and more resilient. I no longer calculated my happiness by counting how many easy, trouble-free days came my way. Now, I measured it by ordinary, beautiful mornings drenched in quiet gratitude, loud family dinners where cascading laughter echoed off the kitchen walls, and peaceful evenings spent simply watching our garden slowly come to life. Every single scar etched into my skin now served as a quiet reminder that surviving the darkness carries its own unique, breathtaking brand of beauty. If this story has struck a chord within your heart today, please take a moment to drop a comment below letting us know that kindness changes lives. Your words just might provide the exact spark of encouragement someone reading this needs to get through their own difficult season. As the seasons continued to turn, my thoughts frequently drifted back to that sterile hospital room where I had first cracked open my eyes. I could still vividly feel the warmth of the morning sunlight, hear the relentless rhythmic beep of the machines, and picture that exhausted young woman bravely smiling through her tears because she fundamentally refused to surrender her hope. Sometimes, true miracles don't announce themselves with dramatic speeches or grand gestures. Occasionally, they manifest simply as a steadfast soul who chooses to stay faithfully right by your side when your entire world collapses around you. Before we close the book on this story today, please leave a heartfelt comment telling us precisely where you're tuning in from and what singular message of hope you intend to carry forward into your tomorrow. If this narrative truly moved you, please make sure to like this video, share it widely with your friends and family, subscribe to Kindness Echoes, and toggle on those notification bells so you never miss another reminder that genuine compassion still thrives in this world. Because no matter how profound the darkness in your life may occasionally become, a single, deliberate act of kindness can instantly transform into the guiding light that helps someone finally find their way back home.